Okay, should we start? Yeah. Okay, so the topic tonight is Ajax and the form API. It's pretty basic. I'll show you some examples and we can lead into some more open discussion if you want to talk about more advanced things.
Just on or off. So
Yeah, the phone call.
yeah, another one. Someone else is down there.
So yeah, this is just kind of more of an intro to Ajax. That's on some of you guys might be kind of boring to you, but to start out, Ajax is kind of magic, at least to me. It's responsive. It's supposed to be fast. It appears to be fast.
Is it because it has a little spinny?
Yeah, you got a spinny. You get it's doing something. I love it. So behind the scenes, it's kind of sneaky. So you can be creative with that. You do a spinny bar. Maybe people think it's doing something cool. It's dynamic for a user. You give them feedback on what's going on. And then, like I say, it's fancy. Fancy cat. I don't have too many meetings on this presentation. So for me, Ajax, the necessity is to communicate effectively. You know, when you're using forms, generally forms are overwhelming, I think. You want to interact with the user, and the user form, not the whole page. So why refresh the whole page when you're just trying to enter data? And you can simplify your form with steps. And so the Drupal Ajax framework itself, it's basically a macro language, allows the server to instruct JavaScript to do stuff with the browser.
Does it match up with jQuery?
It uses jQuery. So that's kind of nice. That's what's nice about the framework. Really, out of the box, you just got a few commands to actually do stuff. You shouldn't have to customize the front end too much. Actually work with JavaScript if you don't want to. But if you want to, you actually get quite advanced with it. So yeah, the Ajax property is what you use on a given element. So it's a form field. The framework actually works outside of the form as well. You can use it for links and stuff. At the end, I'll show an example of that outside of a form.
This is a client-side framework?
Yeah, it's server and client-side framework. So,
Gotcha. So
when you're building your form, you'll actually have some properties that you can use on a given element to tell it to do stuff. Go forward, and this is the very basic property. I think the key thing is your callback. Really, the callback is just going to talk back to the browser. It's going to return something. So by default, Drupal has a system Ajax, and there's a property called path, and you actually don't have to deal with that. Drupal is going to do stuff for you in context of a form. Your callback's arguments is going to be filled with the form's arguments. So you got the form and the form state all set up for you, which is what is really nice about the framework. That's why I like it. I don't have to do a lot of extra stuff just to get that data of what I was working with. So going forward, to integrate it with the form, you have a trigger, or JavaScript sense with the browser is an event. So something's clicked, something's changed, and there's many different browser events. You need to define a wrapper, and that's the DOM element. And typically, if you're using the default out of the box, it's going to be the ID of the div or whatever the element is. It's going to be a div name that you provide. And then the callback, that's the function that's on the previous slide that you will actually do some logic for you. So go forward and combine those, you get something might happen. So you need a form, basic form builder. Nothing special there because it works with forms. You know how to do this. And then your Ajax callback is pretty generic. If you get advanced, you might have multiple Ajax callbacks, but typically, if you're just going to have a callback for a submit process, you might just have one, and it might just return the form after it's done something. So I'll go forward. So here's my form builder. Here's some code out of it. My first field is going to be a select box. Select a drink. Here's my options. And then here's where the Ajax framework API comes in. We're going to define some properties for it. So this is the trigger. This is the event. so automatically on the front end, Drupal's going to build the JavaScript to make these bindings. So on a change for this particular drop down, something's going to happen. We've defined a wrapper, and I just made variables so to make it a little easier. The wrapper is going to call it, it's going to look for that ID on the page. And by default, it's going to replace that. And there's actually another property you can define, but if you don't specify, it'll be replaced. But so there's more. You can append, you can do other stuff. I'll show you a little later.
That's the same property that's like fade in or slide in and stuff.
Kind of. This is more about manipulating DOM. I don't think there's built in. There's the fade in stuff, but you can hijack it and you can do it.
Well, you could do it. Lots of that triggers an animation.
Yeah, there you go. So
Now, can you chain out normal jQuery stuff on the callback?
yes, you can, and I'll kind of show some of that. I don't have an example, but at the end I'll show kind of the API of, you can actually manually tell jQuery what you want to do, but by default we just want to replace our element. So the processing is triggered by this element. We've defined the event. What's going to happen? Drupal's Ajax framework is going to handle the post request for us. Going to go to the default path, and then it'll call our callback. So it'll do a lot of work for us, which is nice. It's real easy. And the bottom point there, it's just like a normal form. So if you're going to have a little more, another callback you're going to attach to actually do more stuff. After it's complete, the callback's going to return Ajax commands. And again, you've already set up a lot of default stuff. You don't have to say get more commands. You can, but out of the box, it's going to do some awesome stuff for you. The browser's going to take the commands. It comes with a JSON string, which is nice because you can tack a lot of more stuff on that payload if you want. But again, you don't have to set most of that stuff up because it's a pretty simple API. And I'll go back. I'll go to my real simple form I made a few hours ago. Oh, that's not good. Okay, ignore that. I think it's because of the internet. You have a guest.
Yeah. Oh, are you grabbing like Bootstrap or
I
something?
think I have my CPN on.
Or your port number's blocked?
Which one is it?
Network grad ally guest.
Any of the get there, sure. And then it's GA 350 400. Take a second.
Over it.
Well,
Now I have some pretty high expectations.
Yeah, this better be awesome.
Make sure you can hit another
Pretty good
page.
chance to
Make
do
sure.
it.
Oh, it's still loading.
I was thinking about it.
There better be some gradients in there.
Come on, did you even varnish this thing?
I said it never ticket style. Ignored it. Anyway, let's see.
I thought that was his work.
Yeah, that's how it is.
Can you get to another site, James? Like just any old site, is it?
I just wonder if your port's blocked.
Yeah, or if you.
Well, that's on the local machine,
Yeah,
but the local
or-
machine isn't working on 8083.
Oh.
Like it'll still pull over 80.
Well, that wasn't supposed to happen.
Way to go.
That's like that myself. We'll be right back.
This episode brought to you by Pantheon. Develop on our system.
So what I just saw, is that
Are
That
you
means
tired
you
of
guys
this
are all
happening
web
to
stack.
you?
Yeah,
manager built into with Drupal?
yeah. Actually, I'm using
Yeah, sure.
what we use.
Cool.
Use it perfectly. I should use Dev Desktop. It's kind of our stack.
Okay.
Handles. It's kind of lame, but it's also kind of nice sometimes.
Like, does Yahoo work or
That is
another?
a good explanation of
Oh, I
actually
think-
dead desktop.
It makes a lot of promises.
Yeah.
It's lame.
It fulfills
because
most of
I've never heard of XAMPP. I've heard of XAMPP. I've heard of XAMPP too, so I'm always trying to update our database.
Well, it runs
Our
on
database is 100 gigs.
So X means like
So it counts the
whatever your
process just
total
always
is.
is. So we,
I have it
a lot
installed
of
on my Mac.
work, so we don't like with that, but I think for most situations, it's pretty decent.
For small size.
If you got a 20 meg database, like 100 meg size, no problem.
With the Mac OS.
What's that?
Oh, there you go.
Maybe it's your external stuff.
I hear you, yeah.
It's like the tool works well.
It's still like looking around. Never mind, there's the other
We
one.
have a scrub version that we have to kind of manually do, but we don't really have a great process right now.
We
Yeah,
thought
doesn't work
about
fast.
that, but we aren't smart.
Have you tried clearing the
We
cache?
haven't developed it. It's painful. Let me see if I can just turn off that.
Is it time, is the heckling over, or is it,
Just warming up.
Yeah.
Have you tried clearing the cache?
Have you rebooted lately?
It's clear registry. We're required to talk in Drupal 8 speak.
Oh, that's true.
Oh,
Yeah.
Sorry.
Is there still a
You don't have to rebuild the registry in 8. We kind of fixed that problem.
Get off the network.
Oh, that's right, 'cause you should, oh, but you bootstrap
The
your
city,
boat.
yeah,
that's
that's what I was
it.
trying to
This-
pull.
Yeah, turn off the CDN.
Enabled it yet. There you go. Can't reach the API.
Where is it? None.
Disable.
Okay, I think we'll get back on track here. Or not.
Nope.
This is good enough though to convey the idea.
That's the way I like my web
Still,
pages.
see if jQuery's still there.
Yeah, that's.
I'm gonna choose-
fine.
Let's choose water. Okay, so that was the first option that I set out. Let me go back to my presentation.
You're pissed, you were up at 3 in the morning making it look awesome, and now it's just not working.
So my drink is my first element. It's a select option that shows you that. The Ajax event will actually go get more options. So like Coke, maybe I'll go beer, go back to water, just rusty water.
Delicious.
Okay.
Is jQuery on the CDN too?
I don't think I even
jQuery
installed-
update.
I don't think I
So in this case,
used
used an empty wrapper for it to stuff in the second drop down.
Yes. So here, I'll show you. I'll just jump to my code here. It's really simple. So my first option, drink options, select box, find some Ajax. I said that if it, in my form state, if I have a drink value, which probably isn't the greatest because I could have an empty drink value, but if it's submitted and it has a value, I'm gonna do a little more stuff. I've defined another form element. It's my flavors. And here's my old switch case to actually just give flavors to my first options, I guess. But I did the same thing, another Ajax, some more Ajax properties. It's got the same wrapper, same callback. And in this case, as you can see, it's actually gonna wrap the whole form. So the whole form is gonna get replaced out. Oh, that's good.
Did a good job. Let's replace the whole form.
Yeah.
Actually fused. That's good.
The internet here does not like it.
Mm-mm.
I'll bet you use Bootstrap. Do you have jQuery update? If you go into config, develop, well, I guess.
If you can get there.
there. Gosh. There's Google.
Yeah, Google. Google works.
Is that an infinite loop? Meta search.
Yeah, so I can't get,
Is this a little inception action?
yeah, right. That break. It's gonna show you a really cool example of some more advanced Ajax, but let's go back to the code, I guess.
Pretty soon Leonardo DiCaprio is gonna walk out of the room, kick your chair over.
But as you can see, so once I have a drink value, I'm gonna give some more options for my flavor. And ultimately, if I have my flavor, I'm gonna give a submit button, which will let the user submit form.
Oh, so that's what's happening. Once you choose a flavor, then you can submit, but before
Yeah.
that, it's disabled.
And there's a lot of ways you can skin this cat. I mean, there's just one way. I actually like to do Ajax validation or Ajax like ops in my validation handler. I think it makes more sense there rather than clutter up the
The
form.
server-side validation.
Yeah. So in this validation handler, you can see I'm handling my fields, but there's another thing you can do. You can actually check what's in your form state, what the triggering element is. And I think it's just called this. And I can tell which button was pressed. It has a machine name. So in this case, since I can't show it, the machine name would be drink. That's what the value of the triggering element would be. And I could do more logic in here and actually set more. I could make this form, this flavor element within my validation if I wanted. I'm going to return it.
So does the validate get called on every Ajax refresh?
Every time the form does
Just
something.
on, I see that. Okay.
Every time the form does something. So, I mean, when Ajax happens, it's kind of like a submit. But unless you actually say that this element is supposed to execute the submit handler, I think it's something like that, like submit handler or something. You say it's true, it'll actually try to do whatever's in the submit. So ultimately, by default, this submit button will do what's in the submit handler. Otherwise, nothing's going to happen except this form will be reloaded over and over. So I do have a condition here in my Ajax callback, which gets called multiple times by all these elements, that if my form state says my form is submitted, meaning validations have passed, that no form error has been flagged, then I just want to return whatever, thanks, instead of returning the form again. So if you're kind of chaining stuff, you could even load another form if you wanted. Do a Drupal get form.
So is that executed property in the form state? That's built in?
Yeah, so for submit buttons, that's actually by default. You don't have to declare it, but if you wanted another element to execute, where did I start typing it? Right there.
The Scandinavian.
Sean Boy.
So if I wanted my drink element, when I change this to execute the submit handler, assuming that validation passed, then it will do the logic that's in my submit handler.
I was talking
So
about
it's like
the,
hiding the submit button. So like as soon as they pick a choice, it just
Yeah.
goes.
what about this one? The, that one, is that built into Drupal?
Yes.
Execute. Form
Yeah,
state
so the form
execute.
state tracks whether the button was trying to execute the submit handler and whether it actually did. And so that'll actually become, Drupal handle set that to true or false whether it actually got to this state.
How would you set it to be progressively storing data to the database as opposed to like this
For a
thing?
multi-step form?
You could do that in this Ajax callback if you wanted, or in your submit handler, which would probably make more sense because that's kind of like, okay, everything's okay, let's do something.
And I mean progressive as in,
So-
they lose an interruption, they've lost 3 paragraphs of stuff. The Google Docs, example, where it's just progressively saving.
I would probably do that in this Ajax callback, actually, if I wanted to save stuff as I go. Or you could use the Drupal's form state and you could tack on more data, save it for later, so if there was an interruption. Because the form state actually gets put into a cache, and it's kind of like this big JSON blob of the whole object. It's all your values and whatever else you want to tack onto it.
But I would,
So it's kind of like cheap storage.
it's cheap storage if you know they're gonna finish though. But if they lose connection and drop or close the page, it's gone.
Yeah, so if
If
the form
you're
has to
thinking-
reload again, you get a new form state.
Right.
You have to know the cache key to actually reload it.
Right.
No,
So,
kind of a-
but you, in that, where he's talking about in that Ajax call, you can create things in the database
Yeah.
and do whatever you need.
Yeah.
So have a true,
You just want to check what you're doing.
You can rebuild the form.
So you're saying so people don't have to click save every time they do something, just after you type, it's saved.
It's an auto recover.
Yeah, which you see on a lot of the newer touch screens.
Yeah.
So you could check your trigger and you could say, okay, what button did they click? And it'll actually have a machine name. So in this case, it would be, and it's actually an array of things, so it would be like that. In this, if I click a drink, that would be the machine name of my trigger. So if I wanted to do something special for that, I could identify it here and do it. But really, I mean, the Ajax callbacks to me is just kind of, what am I going to respond to the page? What am I going to do? So by default, if you just return the form or return a specific form element, like I could just return the drink element again if I wanted to, but by default, I want to return the form if I have no other case. Like in this case, my form's done, I just want to return thanks, but I could do a lot more advanced stuff. I could change my options of my, say my flavors from here if I wanted. I could manipulate the form directly because I'm going to return the form. I could change anything in the form builder, values, default values. I could unset stuff in the form, return the form, it would be missing a whole section.
And the wrapper defines which portion of the form that gets sent back, right?
Yeah, the wrapper is the DOM element, essentially. And by default, the wrapper name is going to be an ID, but you can also do classes if you want. You have to, maybe I can find some code actually and show you where I've done a little more custom. Because this is out of the box stuff. It's real nice. But you can, my next part of my slide was to show that there's actually Ajax commands. What happened to this?
It's the message up on top is not
Should
on the
that,
tab.
should that desktop still running?
Oh, yeah, is that what happened?
It's gone.
Now it started. Okay, it's because I stopped it. That makes sense. Okay.
Here's your problem. It
Oh,
sounds better.
But now I can load this one. This is what I wanted to show. So this is more of a. That's load.
One thing I would add is that it's nice when you're building your own forms, but in Drupal, I found that it's very rare that I'm actually building a brand new custom form. Where I use it more as the form alter. When I'm altering a node form or a contact or any one of those that uses the form API, you can get in and do all the same stuff with, but the Drupal handle the majority of the other work.
Derek, what's wrong with our styling here?
It's new.
That looks great, guys.
Got some crazy.
Derek, you're so awesome.
Yeah, that finally happened, by the way.
What if I see him too?
Each of us at Tosh have roles in this presentation. Derek's the scapegoat. I'm the clapper. This is awesome.
With our Posh site, it takes forever just to run a drish command. Clearing the cache takes about.
Yes.
By the way, that new relic module isn't installed.
Yeah, right. I turned that one off. I don't know this.
We don't care about the header though, or is this down in the form that you're wanting to show?
Yeah, I wanted to show an example of so you don't have to use the Ajax framework with a form. I actually did some lazy loading with our, oh my gosh, it'll load.
Shipping off.
That is lazy.
So you actually make links. If you use the render array, you can make a link and do this Ajax property and give it a callback. So if you have a menu set up that you just want to hit as an endpoint to do stuff, to load stuff, it'll return something. Actually have a little lazy loading links that will return forms, but I don't think this will work. We'll see. Please wait. Yes.
Oh, look at that.
Nice.
Check it out. So that was just a link, and I have a specific endpoint that's set up to actually pull in forms. So these are separate forms, and the reason for that was we didn't want to load these forms by default because we have such high traffic. Every time you load a form, you get a new form cache. And so, every time this page reloads, we have too many users doing that. We're just making all these entries that are pretty pointless. Yeah, that kind of works.
And that actually made a big difference on the performance side when we
It made a huge difference.
implemented that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So previously you were like basically loading this whole form.
Yeah, this whole form. This is kind of a mega form, and with this particular form, this is the party order, which all of you guys are going to have to actually make an order here. So I get my-
I didn't know this is that meeting.
How many guests?
So I gotta go to a dentist appointment.
And you want to?
And I'm learning amateur dentistry, and I think I'm his dentist. So we got
I'm glad we're not the only ones that had Wi-Fi issues though. Thanks, Jason.
Well, so interestingly enough, our Comcast today, no one internally, like from here, could get to our main websites. And so we had to push all of our traffic over our secondary backup line. But it wasn't a problem here. It's like, so from home I could get to the website and everyone else could get to it. So some point along the way it was just like down. I don't think they ever switched it back. So, awesome, I know.
So what you're saying is we're running on dial-up right now?
It's just a much smaller line and it's too slow.
It's too dial.
You just took a very particular set of circumstances to ruin James' presentation.
Well, we were doing our own presentation today. We were running over like Verizon hotspots and stuff. It was faster than the Wi-Fi. I mean, we had tons of people here working and stuff.
If Derek would stop watching Netflix, maybe we'd have more bandwidth.
I can show you that. What pages? So it's going to be that pages.
So I understand, right? Before we were loading the whole form and just hiding the parts that we didn't want, and now we're dynamically loading the parts as they select.
Right.
This looks a lot cleaner than I remember.
Okay, so payment handling. Here's an example of using the Ajax without
A form. Or
a
without.
form.
There it is, effect.
Fade effect.
So it's pretty normal. I mean, you just give it an href, and then you can give it an effect. So when it's actually when the callback is coming back, it'll do the fade. That's kind of customization to do. So that's my endpoint I made. This endpoint, I have namespaces set up. So if you're calling payment, you'll do permission, find the correct form, and Drupal load, return it back. So that's one way of lazy loading outside of the form API. It's kind of using forms, but it's not.
So your callback endpoint returns the form.
Yes. Yep. And you got to make sure you do permissions on that, or else you're kind of open the world. But so if you want more control over your Ajax callback, you don't just want to return a form element and let the render stuff happen behind the scenes, the magic. You can actually use the Ajax commands, and basically it's just an array of commands that you give it. And behind the scenes, really what happens is this replace command happens. And it's pretty simple. It'll take your target or your wrapper and use it as the first argument in it. Click, that's not going to load either. The second argument is actually your HTML. So you would do like a Drupal render of your form. You would do other stuff. But you can actually just totally do whatever you want. You can invoke events, which is my favorite thing to do. So if you have custom JavaScript set up, you can call a JavaScript callback, and you can send specific data to it and do more fun things on the page. So if you like to wire things up manually, this is kind of a fun thing to do to actually customize what you're doing. And that's not working. Okay, I'll go back to code and I'll just show an example of actually. Oh, it's not there. It's in their forms.
Well, you look, and this integrates also with the jQuery validation module, doesn't it? And so you can have your first line of validation be ultra fast right on the browser jQuery, but then you still want your server side so people can't mess with you.
Yeah, you definitely should do that.
Okay.
Not related. Who else uses PHP Storm, and how do you like it?
I like it since I switched finally.
Pretty awesome.
Where were you coming from?
I use a lot of editors like Atom.io, Sublime, Nappy.
Bim.
You would.
So here's an example of actually just using the command. So like, but you can see I exit here, so it's kind of redundant to do other stuff. But code's not that great. But here's So here's my triggering element I was talking about before. You can grab it from your form state, so you know what button was clicked. And that trigger element has more stuff. It has some of your Ajax configured set up, like that wrapper. This is stuff Drupal does behind the scenes, but I was doing it more manually here. So I decided I wanted to remove messages that exist on the page, do another command. Looks like I wanted to append some status messaging. And then finally, this is what Drupal does by default. It will replace your triggering element. So I called it manually. That's kind of the jQuery query, I guess. And then this is the markup that's going to come in. So if you like to do stuff manually, I think this is the way to go. Of course, you always exit at the end because you don't need to print anything out.
So that gets returned.
So this is essentially becomes a JSON response that returns. And the Ajax on the front end is going to iterate through those commands and do stuff on your page.
So it's like in jQuery, the difference between using the Ajax command, it's kind of the generic wrapper, versus the post or get, where you can do more options.
Yeah, so it'll build that jQuery stuff for you.
Yeah.
So you have to set that up.
This is just the way to dig in when you want to customize everything.
Like using Drupal, this has been the least painful like Ajax stuff I've ever done. Like
That's actually surprising.
kind of scaffolding for you. But once you learn it enough, I've hit my head on so much stuff doing Ajax, and that was one of my last things on my slide. So we've gone over that. Ajax commands, the gotchas. So by default, this Drupal Ajax file, it's got a lot of, that's where all the magic happens on the front end, where it's going to set up your headers and actually send your info. What it does, it'll collect all the IDs on your page. And unfortunately, it'll take up your precious header inputs when it sends it. So if you have a page that's massive and has a lot of IDs, it'll assign like over 1,000, and usually that's your limit on the server, sending 1,000 inputs over. You'll go over that limit just because of your template. So I've actually, I can get this part of the page.
So the post is sending all that?
Yes. It scrapes, because when it comes back with the response, it wants to go through all those IDs and say, well, I don't want to duplicate it, and it'll probably append a dash or a number to it to make sure it doesn't duplicate anything. It's kind of smart, but not with like a big page, because I mean, just your theme alone could screw that up for you because you have too many IDs on your page.
One place that Drupal uses that, if you've ever done like in the fields, when you have an add one more item, anything like that, you click that and it does the Ajax refresh and adds another field. It's doing a -1, -2, -3.
Yeah,
it's adding in there.
And that's the purpose of, that's why it will collect what's on your page. And it'll send it over, but what bugs me about it is it sends it per input and it takes up your inputs. I don't know why it doesn't serialize it as one input, because on the other end, it'll actually deserialize it and go through it. It's kind of weird. So I've actually had to override that function. Let me see if I can just find it real quick.
Oh, because you hit too many?
Yeah, because I hit too many, and it was just because of template stuff. And if this example won't
Eric's
load,
fault again.
I was going to hit add product and show you how many products we have. We have this autocomplete feature, and it's nice, but it also it's template heavy, and it'll make an ID for all 700 products we have. It uses up a lot of input space, and we're already pushing the max on this page, especially if we have a lot more orders on here. It's too bad this looks like crap. Derek. Yeah, so
I think Chuck's perfectly
so this is
familiar
actually
with
where it does it.
This whole scapegoat thing is fun.
So when you get down, do you get a stack on?
Yeah, so your request will fail. Your server will reject on your console. You'll get a rejection saying that you went over your inputs. So I've actually had to take this for the specific party page.
Do you have a handler just for
Is
that?
this the pants?
Yeah, and I overrode this handler. I just copied the code, but this one part here, I added a filter to the query to ignore these specific inputs, because to me, it just doesn't make sense. So that was able to solve my problem, but that's something to watch out for. If you have a mega page, is that Drupal is going to take all of your IDs and send it with it, and it'll take up input space. Well, if you have a big form, it's kind of dumb, but it is also kind of crazy to send over 1,000 form fields, I guess.
Just like a product.
The fact that
page
you
with
run
a
into
huge
this
list.
problem is.
Yeah, so if this would work, I'm gonna click add product and we have an autocomplete box. You start, and you'll get the whole list and the template adds IDs to every item. And redundantly, it'll send all those IDs with my request and it kind of ruins it. So this specific page I
Just in rendering the dropdown.
yes, yeah.
Yikes.
So I just made a little modification here.
I think Joomla is way better on that.
Probably yeah, Jim was a lot better. Product head. Yeah, so I actually I overrode, which is too bad, you shouldn't do this. I overrode this prototype, this class, and I just made this one modification, not that, which is what was just wasting space for me. That's one thing to watch out when you're using the Drupal framework. I mean, it's really convenient. That's nice that they try to watch your back so that you don't have duplicate DOM IDs, but it'll bite you when you get into a crazy situation. So that's kind of it. I wish my examples would have been better. Is there
We do
any,
too.
is there any questions or anything like?
Next up, Sarah.
Yeah.
One other thing that I've
Closer.
run into with it is you have to make sure you're following Drupal's JavaScript standards, that you're writing it as a Drupal behavior.
Yep.
Otherwise, it just freaks out when it tries to do Ajax stuff. It doesn't refresh the page in a way because it doesn't get put into, you know, the stack of callbacks that it needs to do when
Fire every time new DOM
it
elements
kind of does
come
the
in.
opposite. It doesn't really refresh it at all because it doesn't see it as something that needs to be refreshed. So
When
if
does that happen? Sorry.
within your actual JavaScript, you have to make sure that that's written as a Drupal behavior.
Okay.
So here's an example of behavior right here.
Yeah, exactly.
So for this specific page, you know, originally I didn't have I wasn't overriding this for still serialized, but this is my logic though. So you make a behavior so that anytime something happens on the page, it's usually an Ajax thing, goes through all the behaviors and callouts. It's going to fire these functions. So yeah, it's a good idea to actually do it the right way. You attach it. You're also supposed to detach. It's kind of dumb. No one does it, and you're supposed to detach all your stuff. But who wants to do that?
That's their.
Clearly not you.
They refresh the page at some point.
Is there like some kind of garbage cleanup that's doing it automatically if you don't?
Refresh the page.
Yeah.
So with your comment, we had a problem with the front end really wanted a div around like Drupal submit buttons, but anytime the button was rendered, or like let's say it was a commerce product and there was multiple products and then you switch it and it, like Ajaxes and changes, that div would get lost. Is it because she didn't?
That could be a reason for that.
She probably didn't do it in a behavior, right?
Yeah, that
Eric's not out.
That could definitely be a reason for it.
Well, all right.
Behavior is like
Problem
the document ready of Drupal, I guess, because behaviors happen after the DOM's loaded and stuff, but that's the only way to ensure that the event's going to get fired.
And you have to be
You have to
careful.
worry about the order, really.
You have to be careful when you put things in behaviors though, because sometimes you don't want something to
Yeah.
be run every
Right,
time
right.
somebody
I had
changes an
the-
option or something like that. And you can see in that example, there's a dot once. And that's what the key to putting things in a behavior is. You call that dot once so that it guarantees that only gets run once.
Right.
So you're not adding another on click every time.
There's actually another
So
argument.
is this firing, setting up an event listener plus a library that's attached to it as a behavior?
The libraries are, the Drupal library is already there. Is that what you mean?
Okay, so it's just attaching an event
It's-
listener to the library
If,
so that it'll
if
be.
you're attaching event handler, then you want to make sure that you're putting a dot once in there,
Okay.
that it's not.
Yeah.
Or else you get,
I think that's where you would use the detach, is if you really wanted to remove it every time you.
if I were to do like a console log here and reload that page, you'd probably see a bunch of logs. So, but if I did it in this once here, it would actually just do it once because it's going to check. It'll automatically put another class behind the scenes. I forget what it's called, it's process.
Yeah.
But you can actually control that. You can give it one more argument and give it the dirty class that you want it to have to know that it's dirty. So that's kind of a nice thing, but that's how you control it. Behavior once, just to do it once. Sometimes you want it to happen every time, but you better re-engineering that right and check your context, I guess. I think I might have another example of that. Check context, maybe not in this one. Oh, yeah. So this one I do. So I actually, like for this particular form, I'm checking my context ID, passing it through, and I'm saying, I've sent a specific key or namespace, whatever you want to call it, to this settings property. And if it matches my context, which is the ID of the element that's happening, then do this. So that's one way to kind of also do it once, but it'll also happen every time, like subsequent Ajax requests. So anytime it happens on this particular shipping form, this code's going to run every time. Because I'm going to make sure that stays binded. But
So James, what if, like, say you're new to Drupal and you don't know anything about all these Ajax commands and the Ajax API, and you just want to do your normal jQuery thing, and you can, right? If you want to, you can attach a JavaScript file and just do your document on ready and skip all the bling, right? The extra stuff. So what would you say to that person that says, like, I don't need all this Ajax API? Like, why would I need it? Like, what does it buy me if I learn this?
well, I mean, if you're using a form, if you're trying to do stuff with a form, you're going to want to use the Ajax API. But
But
it
it's
sounds
something
like,
server side to catch the post.
yeah, it makes it convenient to
You
access
can do
the
that
form
with
state.
jQuery or.
You could, and the first time I did it, or it wasn't me actually, but we just,
It was Derek.
it was Derek. But we put in the template.php because we didn't know anything about Drupal. We put in the page processor. We put it like, hey, is there a post variable? Oh, that must be an Ajax request. And that was the endpoint, you know.
You can do that.
But I mean, like, why should I go through the trouble of learning the Ajax API? And say I already know JavaScript well enough and I could do all this. What does it buy me?
I think it buys you some time. I mean, you're setting up less code because in the back end, Drupal's kind of scaffolding things for you.
Maintenance.
Reuse.
Maintenance and management.
You're
like most
using what
Drupal, I'd
Drupal already has.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it very heavy on front side?
I don't think so.
Framework yes.
I mean, it's just using, I think Drupal's just using jQuery for everything.
It's going to be there either way. So.
In Drupal
So it's all
8,
the backside handlers.
in Drupal 8, jQuery actually doesn't load by default.
Yeah.
So I think if you are doing form stuff and you want to do Ajax, I think you have to say, well, I want to use jQuery to do this.
Yeah.
So if you like Angular Backbone, I haven't actually played with it, but it's supposed to be more flexible. Well, I don't want to buy into jQuery stuff. I want to use my Angular app and have that route everything. That could be another discussion. If I had more time to prepare for this, I wanted to kind of, I look at the Drupal 8 API for the Ajax framework. It's actually basically all the same, which is kind of nice. Like all these,
Jeremy wants to use prototype.
oh, it's that one. Like all these functions for the API.
Prototype's still around.
The same.
Before jQuery.
Is that Essentia? I think it's Essentia,
No.
isn't it?
It was the jQuery competitor years ago. It lost.
Yeah.
But I think it's still floating around.
What is it? Extent?
I wanna use
EXT,
Mood Tools.
something like that?
Oh, yeah.
That's something different.
That is not good.
Yeah, with Drupal 8, I mean, I think just learning the Drupal 7 Ajax framework, I mean, you're pretty well off moving to Drupal 8. It's just like the innards of PHP that's different, but
I also highly suggest if you're doing this stuff to look over, there's a page on Drupal.org about jQuery best practices within Drupal. It talks a lot about using .delegate if you're putting a bunch of different listeners on things at once,
right.
so that you're not bubbling up all over the place, because you're doing like these Ajax calls all the time, and if you're not wrapping it in behavior and you're not delegating things, then you're making way too many calls on the front end.
Yeah, and Dallas's question, that's what I think of, is it narrows the scope, the context variable within the behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Says, only deal with, you have a page of images and you scroll down and it's that auto forever load or whatever, and new images pop up. And you want those new images that were loaded by Ajax to have the click handler and whatever else. And instead of applying something to everything on the page, it's smart to know, here's what's new, just apply it to that. That's the thing that sticks out to me.
I think that's what React is really good at. I've never put it to Drupal, but it'll actually, you don't have to replace entire pieces of like the DOM. You just replace like little pieces of it, like not an entire element, but like the value inside an element. You just swap it out. And doesn't have to go through that huge event bubble and decide, oh, is that supposed to happen? Is that supposed to happen? It just kind of goes to it. But yeah, that was pretty much it.
Yay.